Hi, I'm Lori. This is GLP-1 Journey in Review. Today I'm doing a video in my interview series where we talk to people about their weight loss journey. Today we have with us Freddy, who is also a content creator. His information is going to be linked down below in the description. If you find any of this information helpful at all, please hit that like and subscribe button. After you're done watching this, hop on over to Freddy's channel and do the same. I want to remind everybody that I am not a healthcare provider. Freddie is not a healthcare provider. We're talking about what works for us. If you're planning a weight loss journey, I strongly advise that you check with your healthcare provider. All that being said, Freddie, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. No, thank you very much. Firstly, I just want to just mention quickly that I love that you open with that and tell people, look, we're not professionals in this. Please go and get the guidance. I think that's so
Mhm.
important that we do that, and we're just sharing our experience. So yeah, my name is Freddie. I am a 49-year-old married man of two kids here in the UK, in the northeast of England. And about 3 years ago, I started a journey, and the journey was to go from I was knocking on 19 stone, and I'm 5'10". So for me, that was, I think in your language, that's about 265 pounds ish.
Mhm.
And I was at that point where I was like, okay, I really need to address this now. I'm approaching 50. I'm 50 later on this year. Um, but yeah, I really need to sort of trying to figure it all out and try and take control of my health. So I started running. And I started running to lose weight. That was really my aim, was to do that. And I also started to record the fact that I was doing that on video. And really, I did that for me. It wasn't something that I advertised. I didn't even tell my family that I was going to be doing this. I just did it for me. And I put it on YouTube, and whatever happens with that will happen. Um, 2 years later, I realized that I'd lost about 7 pounds. It really wasn't happening for me. Um, and during this whole period, I'm hearing stories about Zempic and Wegovy and Mounjaro. And I'm hearing all of these stories, and I'm also reading about it and learning a bit about it, thinking to myself, I don't want to go down that track. I'm really not interested in that, but I need to learn about it just for my own sanity, if you like. But then after that, 2 years has passed, and I realised, Christ, in all of this time, I've lost 7 pounds. That's poor for somebody that's trying to lose weight. That's poor, and I didn't fully understand why that's the case. Um, so I had to really have an honest reality check with myself and realise that I was trying to outrun a bad diet, and you can't do that. We all know that
Yeah.
weight loss is 80% in the kitchen. That other 20% is nice to have, but you don't actually need it. You don't need to do all the fitness stuff if that's not your thing. Um, but then I really struggled to address that myself. I would have good days. I would have bad days, and over the last decade or two, I've tried every diet you can think of, and I've had some success. I won't lie. I have had some success for a period of time. And the next thing I know, I'm back to square one. In fact, I'm not back to square one. I'm square one plus some. You know,
Mhm.
it's gone the other way. And so after looking at all of these magic potions, as it appeared to be, it was like, well, this is just too good to be true. Let's really find out a bit more about it. Did my homework, and decided, actually, is this the answer for me? Is this? I actually felt like I was the ideal candidate, because I tried everything. I was running, and when I say to people that I was running, let me just be clear on what I actually mean by that. I wasn't just going out and doing a couple of miles. I was training for 5Ks, 10Ks, half marathons, ultra marathons. I was 18 and a half stone, and I ran 50 miles in a day. So these weren't just a little bit of fitness. I was dedicated
Mhm.
to actually trying to go some distance. So in the first year of the fitness, I got to 50 miles that I did in a day. Then I tried it again the following year. I got to 55 miles. But I know I can do so much more than that. I just didn't have the frame to allow me to. Um, but that was okay. Let's give this a whirl. Let's find out if this is actually for me. Spoke with a health professional, got all the advice, did all of the blood tests, all of the checks, all of that, and then decided to pull the trigger and see what results I can get. And this is where I have such a polarizing thought of when people say you expect it to be magic, and but it's not. I get why people say that it's not, but I have to be honest and say, kind of is. And it doesn't really magically make you lose weight. But I took my first injection, 2.5 milligrams of Manjaro, and within a couple of hours, I'm sat with my wife, and I said to my wife, I said, "This is going to sound really weird, and really off kilter. I feel really peaceful. I just feel calm. I feel relaxed. I feel like I feel like I've just had one of those days where I've ended it well. Like work wasn't on my mind, food wasn't on my mind, and it was like, hold on, that's it. Food's not on my mind. And this was literally within a couple of hours,
Hmm.
where I'm thinking, wow, this is this what it is? And this is why I say that I have that conflicting opinion about when we can say that it's not a magic pill or it's not a magic injection. It kind of is, because my whole mentality around everything changed within a couple of hours. Is it going to make me lose weight? No, it's not. I still have to make me lose weight.
Hmm.
I understood that quite quickly, but this was giving me the headspace to allow me to do it. And I would say I don't want to. I almost cringe a little bit when I say this, because I don't want to say that losing weight's easy on Manjaro, because it's not. But it was at the start of the journey, because it was such a switch. All of a sudden, I was in that
Hmm.
position where, wow, this is easy. Um, and I don't know if how far you want me to go into that, because I can talk about some of the reasons why it was easy,
Go
but
for it.
actually, well, great. There are actually bad reasons why it was easy. And I think this is really important that people understand that. And I actually got sniggered at this, because although I've been talking about my running on YouTube for a couple of years,
Hmm.
I did decide quite quickly to talk about Manjaro on YouTube as well. And the main reason that I did that is I know that people would be watching me for the last couple of years. I had a 2 or 3 thousand subscribers at this point. So people have been watching me do my running. I didn't want to all of a sudden be losing all this weight and not being transparent about how I'm doing it,
Hmm.
because they could see for the last 2 years, well, it wasn't working for you. What's changed, right? So I was kind of open and honest about that, and I've kind of lost my train of thought. I'm really sorry. What was I
We
point?
were talking about how it was easy somewhat.
Right, right, and yeah, and this is why I want people to realise that it was easy, but for the wrong reasons in some way. And I got sniggered at. That was it. I got sniggered at on one of my videos, because in my video, I said that the thought of being hungry isn't there anymore. I'd almost forgotten what that felt like, because it wasn't just that I'd forgotten what to think when I was hungry. I didn't ever feel hungry. And I think that's maybe just makes you forget about eating. So what I actually had to start doing was reminding myself to eat. And I would do that by saying, "Hey Siri, remind me at 1 o'clock to grab some lunch, and then remind me at 6 o'clock to grab some dinner."
Mm.
And somebody sniggered at me saying, "God, what a ridiculous way to live." And of course, it's not. Your mentality has changed so quickly that you're having to adapt to remember to do these things. And the reason that I say that, and the reason that I insisted that I started setting those reminders, was because I just wasn't eating enough in the early stages. So naturally, that weight is gonna fall off. But of course, we all know that's also not a healthy way to do it. It's
Hmm.
an easy way to lose weight, but let's not pretend that that's a good way to lose weight. It's absolutely
Absolutely.
it's it can be as bad as being morbidly obese. In my view. Um, so I did set those reminders, until I got to the point of, okay, I'm now in this new habit. I'm eating at specific times. I'm remembering to eat. And actually, my body is now getting used to having this new thing inside of its body. And I'm kind of recognizing the same signs, just in a slightly different way, is how it felt to me. But I think that was really important lesson that I learned quite quickly. And I know anybody that has used any of these medications will have heard the stories about you must eat enough protein.
Mhm,
And I think we all think that we do. But I am happy to admit that I thought I was in the early days eating enough protein. I definitely wasn't. Now that I can look back a little bit, there was definitely some muscle loss that I
mhm,
was experiencing. But again, it just took me a little bit of time to recognize that, make those adjustments, and what have you. So I lost in total. I've lost just over 50 pounds
mhm,
in that 12 months. I'm not quite where I want to be, and I think this is maybe where I'm a slightly different case study to maybe your average user of the medication, because my kind of life outside of my work and my family, it really does center around running and fitness. And because I do a lot of the ultra distance stuff,
mhm,
earlier this year, in 2025, for example, my previous 50 and 55 mile run became a 75 mile run. So
mhm,
losing that weight allowed me to run 75 miles. Um, because I want to run these sorts of distances, it obviously takes a lot of training to be able to achieve that.
mhm,
And you can't run those distances without fueling correctly. And again, that's something that I found very difficult to do. I want to run 75 miles. I can't do that unless I'm eating, and
right,
during that actual event, I was eating every 45 minutes to an hour, and taking on as many calories as I could within that time. That's a really difficult thing to do when you're using something like Manjaro, because your
mhm,
body's like, I'm full, back off. Um, so actually, before that event, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks before that event, I decided to stop the usage, and allow my body to recover slightly, and allow my brain to say, "Yeah, you can keep on eating," and I did. Um, but that's also now having, and this, I'm constantly having this internal argument with myself. I'm not quite where I want to be in terms of my weight, but also I'm not quite where I want to be with my running. I'll be doing that event again this June, and my target's actually 100 miles within 24 hours, that I want to run. And I know that I can't do that if I'm not eating enough, as I mentioned. But I also want to get to target. So it's kind
mhm,
of, I have to constantly adjust what I'm doing. I do fluctuate with my dosage depending on what I'm doing. So the highest I've been on is 15 milligrams. I've never done that for more than a few weeks. I actually find that dose probably too high for me. It doesn't always make me feel good. But then I will drop it down, and come back. And again, all done with professional guidance.
mhm,
I'm not telling anybody to do what I'm doing. You seek your own help to do that. But that's
absolutely.
kind of, and that's kind of, but what I'm having to do, because otherwise the running goals have to sit on the sideline. Then I'll just go crazy. I'm not. I'm not going to do
Mhm.
this.
So what is your current dose?
So I actually will say that 2 weeks ago I had 15 milligrams, and I haven't taken one in the last 2 weeks. Again, I've just started a new marathon training block.
Mhm,
I'm doing a marathon in April, so I'm adjusting my body for that. And when I say adjusting my body, what I mean by that is, when I'm on 15 milligrams, it would be hard to fuel for those
right.
runs. But what I'll do is I'll allow my body a few weeks off, then that enables me to come back at a lower dose. And I can find that the sort of 5 to the 7.5 milligrams is enough for me to do the training while still losing a little bit of weight as well. And that's why I say I have to kind of keep adjusting what I'm doing. I know that's not ideal, and that's certainly not what everybody should be doing. But I think maybe my situation is slightly unique.
Yeah, everybody's journey is different, and you kind of have
Right.
to get it tailored to your needs. I'm just trying to expose other people so
Yeah.
that people know there are other options. Uh,
Yep.
so when you first started, the prices in the UK were somewhat reasonable, and they went up. How did you handle that, or did it not
Yeah.
affect you? Is the government paying for yours, or
No, yeah, thanks, America. Um,
sorry,
yeah, no,
wasn't my
no, all good.
decision. I think
No,
that
no,
one took a lot of people by surprise, you know?
it didn't. I think, yeah, as soon as it got announced, we all knew what was going to come. Um, and our prices did go up, and then they did go up quite drastically. I think I was, they went up maybe 50%, something like that, and
Mhm,
that's a big jump. Um, did I have to be really honest about it and say that for me, it annoyed me, of course, but I put my health first, and I am
mhm,
self-funded. This isn't paid for by the government or anything like that. I do pay for this myself, but I put my health first. So I just swallowed it and said, okay, that's what it costs now. Because I have to say that it's really hard to put a price tag on your health.
mhm,
And I know not everybody is able to say that.
mhm.
I can hands up admit that, but fortunately I can, and I'm okay swallowing that extra cost. So I continue to pay it. There are other ways in the UK, to reduce it. If you're using Manjaro, for example, you can switch to Wegovy, where
Mhm.
Wegovy is quite a little bit cheaper. Is it as effective? That's not for me to say. I hear it's maybe
Right.
not, but it's still good, right? So if it might still work just as well for you. But I know that with Manjaro, I'm happy using it. It's working for me. I didn't want to rock the boat. I would rather just swallow the cost and hope that it changes in the future. But what I will say is, for the future, is do I plan to always be on Manjaro? I hope not. Is the truth. It's if it has to be a lifelong cost, where people are on, I don't
Mhm.
know, medication for blood pressure for the rest of their lives. If that's the case, then so be it. But I hope it's not, and I will be experimenting this year to see if I can come off it. But I'm very honest with myself to say that if I do come off it and I find all of a sudden that we've put £30 back on, I'm straight back on it. And then if I need to be a lifelong user, so be it. And one thing I am tired, exhausted of, is people saying to me, because I would tell people openly that
Mhm.
Freddie, you look great. What's your secret? And I'll be like, Manjaro. I'm quite happy to admit that. Um, but one thing I am really tired of is, oh, but what about the side effects? What about the side effects? It's so dangerous. I'm like, mate, do you know how dangerous it was when I was obese?
Mhm.
Do you know how much impact that was having on all sorts of my body? And you know what? You could physically see it. You could physically see the side effects that I was having. I was a big guy. I was wearing clothes that now drown me. You know, so and I was honest about this on my videos as well. I weighed up the side effects because, of course, there are side effects. There's dangers
Of
with
course.
paracetamol. You want to take an aspirin for a headache. There's a danger with that.
Mhm.
If you read the small
Absolutely.
print, yeah, you read the small print. I think it even says danger of death. They're all in there
Absolutely.
for things like that. So I weighed up those, but then what I really did was pay attention to what are the side effects of doing nothing. And actually, those side effects scared me more than giving this a try. Because if I start to get really bad side effects, if it's unbearable, I can stop it at any point. I
Absolutely.
can I can say I've had my last injection. Now let it wear off. Taking the other option, which is let's ignore it. Well, we already can see the side effects. We're already in that danger zone. Why would I
Mhm.
choose to do nothing?
I hear. I don't know if you follow Neil at all, but like he seems to be have had some from My Life's Toil. He seems to have some pretty serious side effects with his pancreatitis.
Right, right.
And he is a medical professional, but he recognized it right away and did something.
Right, and I think that's the important thing. It's if you could. I mean, I've had side effects, of course. I have, and they haven't been. I wouldn't put them as they've been emergency. Some of them have got uncomfortable at times, and then I've
Hmm.
adjusted and addressed it and made change to help it. And one of those side effects, which is one that did scare me. I travel a lot with work. I'm up and down the UK, and
Hmm.
I was actually up in Scotland, at one point, and I was getting, if I'm sat down and I stood up, I would go dizzy, and it would only last for a couple of seconds. But then I was in, Scotland, like I say, and I was walking around the town, and I became very dizzy whilst just walking around. And I was actually quite scared because I felt like I was going to fall over at any point. And this was early on in my journey,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Well, you idiot! You haven't eaten. That's why you're not feeling great. You're starving, you know."
Mhm.
And again, it was one of those triggers. Well, of course, eat. And then I literally, while I was in the town, I went to a bakery. I got some food. I had to sit down for half an hour. I had a nice cup of tea, and quite quickly I started to feel normal again. So it was just understanding those signs. The thing I'm looking at now is remembering what it was like before Manjaro, and then
Mhm.
looking at where you are now and thinking, well, did you have this before? If the answer is no, then address it. Because if this dizziness wasn't there before, what's caused it? And you have to be really vigilant, I think, to keep an eye on what's going on. It's not a case of just ignore it. This is just a side effect. Oh, we'll be fine. No, you've got to address those side effects. Even I had another side effect that I had, which is dry mouth. And I would wake up. It got so painful that it was waking me up in my sleep. It would all be all inside my mouth, but then it started creeping down to my throat as well, and I could feel that dryness. I spoke to a health professional, and they were quite quick to address why that was. And it's so simple when you think about it. And they said to me that if you think about when you were eating before Manjaro and you're having your regular diet, so much of your water intake was coming from your food. All of a sudden, you've taken so much of that food away that you've also taken a lot of that water away. You think you're drinking enough because you're comparing it to where you were when you were eating all of that food. And that's essentially what was happening. I was dehydrated more than I should have been
Mhm.
because I wasn't taking in the water from my food. I obviously addressed it. I drink more water. The problem went away. It's simple.
That's great.
Most of the side effects you seem to be able to counteract.
Awesome. Let's talk a moment about accessibility in the UK, because I know Monjaro came out here way before it came out
Mm.
over there. As a matter of fact, we have Monjaro and Zepbound, depending on the usage, same medication, just different branding. One for diabetes, the other for weight loss.
Sure.
Just recently, um, like a week ago, it'll probably be 3 or 4 weeks by the time this video comes out. But we now have an oral GLP-1 medication version of Wegovy that
Yeah.
uh, Novo Nordisk has come out with. Is that available in the UK? Is it accessible there, or?
Not that I'm aware of. I've certainly heard of it. We seem to get, oh, this has come out in the US. So then we think, okay, cool. We're maybe 2 years away from getting that. That's kind of how or certainly how I kind of see it here, is we seem to follow your lead on that. So I'm
Hmm.
not aware of that being available at the moment. Um, Manjaro and Wegovy are certainly available. There are criteria that you have to meet, but I will say, and I don't know if this is a positive or a negative. I'll let you guys decide that yourself. But I would say that it's not difficult to get in the UK. You do, like I say, you do have to meet criteria, and one of those, for example, is BMI. You have to have a specific BMI.
Hmm.
I forget the number. I think it's something like over 35, something like that. Um, so you have to meet that. I will say, and this is just being honest, so it's not me doing this, it's the UK system. If you want to cheat that system, it's probably quite easy to do.
Hmm.
In a lot of cases, for example, you have to provide a BMI, and you have to provide a photograph of yourself. The question is when was that photograph taken? Because nobody at the other end of the phone
Hmm.
or the internet is asking me when I took that photo. I was honest. I didn't need to lie. Um, but let's say that I had lost all of the weight, but and maybe I shouldn't be, and I hadn't used Banjaro or whatever else. I could, in theory, show you a 3-year-old photograph, lie about my BMI, and be prescribed. So I'd like to think that's going to be addressed eventually, and I don't think it should be. It's just my view. I don't think that
Hmm.
it should be as easy as that to obtain. because I do think that if you're somebody that perhaps doesn't need it or you're using it for the wrong reasons, it can be a dangerous medication. Let's not kid ourselves. When I mentioned
It
earlier about
it can be,
stopping you eating, it can be.
but the other side of that is, for example, my cardiologist, he uses uh, Ozempic,
Right.
and he doesn't really have any weight to lose. He's strictly using it for the cardiovascular benefits.
Sure. Sure.
So,
Yeah.
there are
Yeah.
other uses.
No, absolutely. I get that entirely. I just worry about how easy it could be to misuse it. You know.
And like we have here, we also have telehealth for when it's not available through insurance. And we have what's called compounding, which is basically a copycat version of it. And they throw
Yeah.
like a vitamin in there so they could, say it's a custom mixture. And, you know, f- that's pretty easy to get a hold of, and
Yeah.
pretty easy, like I said, you could use it for other reasons and so forth. And we do have people use it for other reasons through the
Right.
telehealth. So
Sure.
yeah.
Yeah. And we also obviously we have the NHS,
Hmm.
and it is possible to get this through the NHS. I did speak to the NHS when I first had my blood tests, and that they were done by the NHS initially, and they essentially said to me, "Yep, you can get Manjaro on the NHS. We will be able to get it to you in about 18 months."
Hmm.
So it was more of a case of being on this long, laborious waiting list, which I wasn't prepared to do. So and again, that kind of depends on where do you live, what region are you in, because some
Hmm.
regions put it higher up their priorities than others. I happen to be in an area where they say yes, you can get it, but it will be in about 18 months, 2 years
Hmm.
before it's actually available. So I
Yeah,
avoided that path and went
I got
privately.
that.
Yeah.
On the same subject, is I know people that have had eating disorders in the past that are on it now, and that should be the biggest red flag. They just don't tell this new telehealth company about it, and it's
Right.
pretty simple to get.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what I talk about with the fear that I have with how easy it can be to get for the wrong reasons.
Have you ever considered Wegovy, or what made you choose, or not Wegovy? I guess it's Ozempic there. What made you choose Mounjaro?
Yeah, it is actually week over here that we get.
Oh, is it okay?
And honestly, there was one reason alone that I chose Manjaro, and it's because at the time, all of the collateral that I was reading said it that it's more effective. And I thought,
Hmm.
okay, if I'm going to put my money into this, I want to get the best possible chance of it actually working. Manjaro ticked the most boxes for me at that time. I haven't looked into anything else more recently because I'm happy with what I got. But that's kind of the reason that I decided. And it was quite an easy decision for me to make, to be fair. It's the most effective, is what I was being told. Right, we'll
Hmm.
go for that.
And going back to the subject of the oral version, is
Mm.
Eli Lilly has orforglipron, which is their oral version coming out in a few months. Again, both of them are cash price of like 149, 150 starting dose, which is quite a bit less expensive. And for us in America, it gives insurance companies an option that's not quite
Mm.
so expensive for them. If somebody does need a GLP-1, say, hey, let's try this first, we'll cover it, because it doesn't cost them $1,200. It only costs them 150.
Right, right. I'd be quite happy with that, is the truth. And
Mm-hmm.
more so, I don't necessarily think that for me would be a financial decision. I
Mm-hmm.
think that would just be a Christ. That's way easier. You know,
Mm-hmm.
let's just take it out the bottle and drop rather than having to deal with the injections. Don't hurt, of course they don't.
Yeah.
They're just maybe can be a bit of a pain. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Not physical pain, just a pain to be bothered to do it and get set up and popping a tablet, of course, would be far easier. So yeah, I
Now,
look forward to
also
seeing if
in
that comes.
in the US, we're taking a page out of your book and they're going to be switching to the quick pen because here they're
Right.
individual doses, individual
Oh,
injecting pens.
right.
And, you know, uh, if I was on name brand, I think I would prefer it because being on compound, I could go in between doses where with your quick pen, you kind of could.
Right. Yeah, the quick pen. I didn't realise that you had individual doses. Yeah, the quick pens
Hmm.
are great. I mean, you get your 4 doses in there. Um, Officially, you get 4 doses in there. You get five. Um, but
You still get the
yeah,
golden
they're great.
dose?
Yeah, the golden dose is still in there. Yeah, they kind of
Excellent.
have to have it in there because part of the priming your needle each time is you have to squeeze a bit of the liquid out. So if you're going to, how much liquid you're going to squeeze out, so they
Hmm.
have to have more in there than they need. But they've changed the design of the pen slightly, where when you want to get to the fifth dose, you used to be able to just give it a bit of a twist, and eventually it would come through. Now they've started to break, some of them. So if you twist it, you have to twist it quite hard, and then it will snap. Um, there's other ways of doing it. I don't want
Hmm.
to be the guy that shares how you get it
Right.
out, but you
There's,
know,
if anybody is doing it, not that it's recommended, there's plenty of
no,
videos out there on how to do it. So
right,
we don't need to get into that.
no,
But getting that extra dose for some people financially makes it a little bit more tolerable at that price.
yeah, it really does. Yeah, it is a subject that I'm a little bit uncomfortable talking about, but it does.
Hmm.
It gives you 5 weeks instead of four. You know.
Hmm. So here in the U.S., we're having a lot of celebrities that are not really necessarily endorsing it, but are coming out and saying, this is what they've used to lose their weight, and not strictly for vanity, because a lot of them were overweight. Do
Mm.
you have that in the UK?
Um, I think there's been a couple. I wish there was more. It's kind of like
Mm-hmm.
if we go back the other way, it's when you look at Hollywood and you look at The Rock. We all know The Rock's taking steroids. We all know that. We all
Mm-hmm.
accept it. It is what it is. But does The Rock tell you that he's taking steroids? Of course he doesn't. It would damage his brand. And I'm sure that's been happening a lot with the Ozempic and all that. A lot of people they don't want to admit to it. Um, but it's great that people are starting to talk about it because I think it's really important that we get rid of that stigma. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it, People have always you hear it all the time, even now. I will see it on comment sections of lots of people's videos when they're talking about using weight loss medication, and it's always, well, eat less and move more. That's their advice: eat less and
Mm-hmm.
move more. And I will challenge people quite regularly. I'm saying, well, do you say that to people that have a high blood pressure? Do you tell them, stop taking that medication, do this? Or someone's got a headache, stop taking an aspirin or a paracetamol and do this. And actually, let's go to the exact opposite of the obese people and look
Mm-hmm.
at those people that are perhaps they don't eat, and they're anorexic. What do you say to them? Just eat more. You know, of course
Mm-hmm.
you don't. And I think it's really important that we don't say to people with anorexia, just eat more. We get them help. And we should do the same with people that find it really hard to lose weight. Don't just tell them
Absolutely.
to eat less and move more. Find out what help they actually can do with. And listen, that might not be medication. We don't, none of us want
Mm-hmm.
to put medication into our bodies. If we can do it another way, then why would we put medication into our
Absolutely.
bodies?
You know,
But sometimes you need that extra help.
would you go up to the Rock and say, "Hey, don't use those steroids, just work out a little bit more"?
Right, right. And we accept it with things like that. We accept it. But fat, is that still that category of person that it's still okay to offend? You know, we,
Mhm.
we have racism, we have sexism, we have all of those. All of those quite rightly are being stamped out heavily, and they should be. Let
Mhm.
let all of that disappear. But it's still okay to call the fat guy the fat guy. And I think it's time that the more of us talk about it, and the more of us that
Mhm.
can then teach other people what this really means, then that all will go away as well. And I
Yeah.
think that's really important.
I think what really helped here was when Serena Williams said that she needed it because she's a world class athlete, who does tons and tons of training. You know, you can't tell her to work harder because I'm sure she does, and I'm sure
Right.
she has dietitians and she, has chefs if she wants to, making her,
Mm.
the best food you could possibly eat. And she had to admit, since she had her baby, she just couldn't lose that little bit of
Yeah.
fat, no matter what she did.
Yeah. And that's what we need, right? We need more people like that are just saying, be honest. Yeah, there's no shame
Hmm.
in it, and that's how I see it. There's no shame in this. We all need help sometimes, and because to me, and I know it's recognised that way now, it's a medical condition. We're not just
Hmm.
greedy. We're not greedy. I ran 75 miles. I'm trying,
Hmm.
but I struggle with other ways, and the reason that I struggle is because there's always that little man sitting on my shoulder that's saying, go on, have one more, have another biscuit, have a bit of cake.
Absolutely.
Just you are hungry. You don't think you're hungry, but you are hungry. Well, you know what? That guy gets told to shut up, and that's great.
I think we're kind of built that way because, if took people anywhere in the world and you put down a platter of raw vegetables or a platter of chicken wings, which one do you
Yeah,
think is going to disappear first? Because
yeah,
we're not wired to go, oh, I don't want that food. I'll take the raw vegetables.
yeah. Exactly. And it's just I really, again, I said it earlier. I really just love the space that it gives me to breathe. And I really feel that every day. I really feel that. I'm just happier. That's not an exaggeration. I'm just much happier now.
Hmm.
And I thought I was happier before. I really did. I really thought I was in a
Hmm.
good place mentally. And it wasn't until I took this step back and looked back, and that's where I've got a real advantage, I think, because I was putting myself on YouTube for 2 years before. I can go
Hmm.
back and watch those videos, and I can watch those videos from a different angle now. During those videos, I was really happy, I thought. I look at them now and realize that I wasn't. I was kidding myself. And I can look at myself and I almost feel sorry for myself when I watch them, especially from a couple of years ago when I was at my heaviest. And I almost feel sorry for myself because I'm like, you think that you're happy. You really do believe that you're
Hmm.
happy, but you're not. You were just kidding yourself. Now I genuinely believe I am, and I'm far happier than I've been in many a year,
That's great.
many a year. Yeah, that's the biggest side effect that I'm really happy about.
Now, when you were heavy and trying to lose weight, did you have any problems like cholesterol or high blood pressure or anything like that?
No, and actually that was the really interesting thing when I went to see my doctor, and I've had blood tests and that many times. And he said to me that looking at my blood tests, he says, "You're actually a healthy guy. The problem is you're fat." He said, "I want to say that you're healthy, but how can I say you're healthy when you're?" I was classed as morbidly obese. I don't know if our
Mhm.
brackets are the same as you guys, but in the UK, I was classed as morbidly obese. So the doctor can't say you're healthy. He says, but looking at your blood, you absolutely were. And my cholesterol, all the numbers were good. I was just eating too much food, you know, but not, and it wasn't always bad food because you can have good food and still eat too much.
Mhm.
And I think that's probably what I was doing. So yeah, all my blood tests and that were all pretty decent, to be fair. I was just greedy.
Oh, that's great. So when you're not training
Mm.
and having to eat like every 45 minutes to an hour, what does a day of food look like to you?
Yeah. So breakfast is one of those meals that I can take or leave. I've
Mhm.
never really been a big breakfast guy. I do try and have something, but 9 times out of 10 now that will be a protein shake.
Mhm.
Will be my breakfast, and I use I use Huel. I will be open and say that I am an ambassador for Huel. I won't give out my discount code now, don't
Mhm.
worry. But I am an ambassador for Huel, and I'll have a Huel shake, and that's 400 calories. So I'll have 400 calories for my breakfast. Most days, I kind of make myself have that, and I'll be honest, I, I I don't really ever want it. Like I say, I can take or leave breakfast, but yeah, I'll have that. But for lunch, I tend to have some cold meats, some cheese, I'll chuck maybe a slice of bread in there or something like this, even down to or maybe little pasta pots that I might have. So I'm still getting some.
Mhm.
My biggest food, the food that has the biggest impact on me is probably with most people, but it's definitely carbs. If I eat carbs, I hold on to so much water, um, which again was a bit of a barrier to get over when I'm getting on the scales. I actually rarely go on the scales now because they were affecting my mental health, I think, at one point.
Mhm.
Because if I have carbs today, I'm heavy tomorrow. I haven't put weight on. I'm just holding a lot more water this time because I've just had those carbs. But then dinner on an evening, it tends to be meat and vegetables of some sort,
Mhm.
and every variation of. Really, I'm really lucky that I have a wife that helps support that as well. We both share the cooking, and we both recognise that we need to be a bit more sensible. We have kids. So I say kids. One of them's 19 years old. One is 14
Mhm.
years old. If we just serve them sugar every day, they'd be quite happy. Um, but obviously,
Mhm.
we're not doing that. So yeah, we kind of, I would say that we have a typical British diet, but it's kind of well rounded. And when I say British, that just means we steal food from every other country and pretend it's ours. So there's a lot of that. We eat a lot of Italian food, a lot of Indian food, but Chinese food, all that sort of stuff. Um, but for me, it's less about what we're eating, because I say mostly it's fairly healthy stuff. It's colourful, which I think is the first thing. If it's not
Mhm.
colourful, you're probably doing something wrong. Um, but we're making sure that we're not eating too much of it. That's the real thing.
Mhm.
It's that portion control has been huge. And I did this fairly early on. Is I made a regular dinner, what I was eating 2 years ago. You know, um, and then I portioned up a today dinner, and I was eating for three people. You know,
Mhm.
and you don't know this. You just see that, you just see it on your plate, and you think, well, I can put that in my body, and I feel fine. You're eating too much, or I was eating too much, and that was my biggest downfall. And again, that's because that little guy in my head was saying, no, mate, we're not done. Keep going. You know,
Yeah,
and I- and
that
I and I
food noise,
wouldn't.
it was
Yeah.
terrible.
Yeah, I would never feel full. I wouldn't. I could eat. I would even look and think, Christ, I've just eaten a ridiculous volume of food, but I could have some more. You know.
Mhm.
And now I don't. Now I tend to have quite a small plate, and I'm almost struggling towards the end of it. But I will finish it because I know I need to. Um, and then we're good. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just been a huge U-turn.
And I know for me, it was like when I look back at what I was eating, I'm like, geez, what I think I was, in an eating contest or something. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. It's crazy. And my kids are stick thin. They are stick thin, and it's interesting watching them. And it's always been this way. We would give them the food that we think they needed, and always they're leaving half a plate full of food, and we're like, guys, why are you wasting food? And actually, that's the dumbest thing to say to a kid, because
Hmm.
a kid will stop eating if they're full. You telling them to finish what's on your plate is not teaching them a good habit. It's teaching them a bad habit
Yeah.
because they already know they're done. We're full,
Yeah,
and now I'm only eating because my dad's made me feel like I'm wasting money. You
absolutely.
know?
I know when I was growing up, it was like, finish everything on your plate. There's starving kids in China. Yeah, like.
Yeah. Do you know? My parents be embarrassed by this now. I'm from a military family. My dad was really quite a military guy. He's quite strict. We would sit at a table, and you're not leaving this table until your plate is clean. And that's what we would have to do. And where we always had to recite, um, exactly, we would have to say, "Please, may I leave the table?" If we got that word wrong, the answer is no. And we would only get yes if the plate was empty. So that's kind of that probably. I'm not sure my parents will watch this. They do watch my channel, so they might. Sorry, mum and dad, I'm sorry, but this happened. I think actually that may be part of the basis of what started to form bad habits, because I'm not leaving this table until that plate is clean.
Well, times were different back then too, because
Yeah,
back when I was a kid, like TV dinner type things and frozen that was the thing where, today it's not as highly emphasized. Unfortunately, fast food still is, but even
Yeah.
here, our fast food chains are now starting to offer high protein versions of stuff. Even some of the hamburger places are doing away with the bun, and you could get it as a lettuce wrap, and are trying to, they see how it's going, and they're trying to
Yeah.
stay, in tune with their customers.
Yeah, one of the other things that I really love about the younger generation, I know the younger generation do get quite a hard time. I'm a fan of them. I like some of the way that they think. I think they're exciting, and they're doing some really they're really clever people that are misunderstood
Mhm,
by the older generation because the older generation just don't understand what's going on, and it's not what we did. But I'm really seeing now. Having a 19-year-old son, and bear in mind that the drinking age for alcohol in the UK, as you probably know, is 18. So kids can go out at 18 years old, go to the pub, come home steaming drunk. And they do that sometimes. When I was 18, that's what we did.
mm,
Let's go out and
mhm,
get drunk. Oh, you've got money, let's go. You know, I'm really loving now that the kids aren't doing that so much, and they're more health conscious, and they're doing more fitness and all of that sort of stuff, which I think the older generation can learn from the younger generation to see what they're doing.
mhm,
Um, at work, for example, I haven't drunk alcohol as well, by the way. Alcohol stopped when I started Manjaro. I haven't touched a drop of alcohol for 14 months. Um, and I believe that Manjaro's helped me do that. I know officially you're
mhm.
probably not allowed to say that because the studies aren't being completed, but there is evidence pointing towards that it can help.
Absolutely.
Um, I haven't drunk alcohol, like I say, for 14 months. But normally, with certainly with my age group, when we go to work and we go out for work functions, maybe we have meetings, it always comes with a beer or a glass of wine, always. And that's normal in business. We've had a successful week, we've had a successful meeting. Let's celebrate by going to the pub and having a few drinks. And again, that's just a really bad habit learned really young,
Mhm.
and so it stays with you. And that's one of the exciting things about the younger generation is they're saying no to that. They might actually, and I see it because I get involved with lots of running groups, and I have lots of friends that are in there. I've started my own social running group, and I'm seeing young people go to these, and it might be a case of we've had a really successful day, we've had a really successful week. Let's go for a run, you know. And it might seem odd, but that's what they're doing, and I think that's amazing. If the younger people are going to start living that way, their kids are going to do the same, hopefully. So give it a bit of
Absolutely.
time. Yeah.
Yeah, and my opinion is, a lot of people say, oh, this, new generation, they're lazy. They don't, they want to just do their hours and go home. Well, I look at it as they're actually respecting the fact that they're taking time to themselves,
Yeah.
for themselves, so that they don't run into the same health issues that we seem to by overworking, getting burnt out, and so forth.
Absolutely. And that's a huge. You're absolutely right. It's huge. Nine till five, and I know 9 till 5 is easy to say. Well, at 5 o'clock, stop work. I know you can't always do that. Of course, you might spill over. But if you're still working at 9 o'clock at night when you were meant to finish at 5, somebody's doing something wrong.
Hmm.
You know. And I like the fact that the young kids are saying, "Hold on, at 5 o'clock, you stop paying me." Okay, I'm finished. And that's not me being awkward or difficult. It's just,
Hmm.
hey, it's a two-way street. I'll work till 6 or 7 if you like, but you pay me. That's just normal.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I love that. And I also really like that when they do have that downtime, they're doing something productive with it. It's
Hmm.
not sat in the pub. I mean, we can remember in the 80s and 90s, we'd go into a pub and it would be full of smoke. You couldn't see the other end of the bar because there was so much smoke in the air, and everyone's having a few pints of beer. Well, all that's gone away now. You walk into a pub; it's actually can be quite a nice place to be, and largely in the UK now, a lot of pubs are more about food rather than the alcohol. And
Hmm.
again, you can really see that becoming more of a thing, which is great.
Speaking of them being more about food, I know in America, our restaurants just give you way too much of it. For me, I'd rather have a smaller plate. I don't care if, I mean, it would be nice if they charge you a little less, but, If they
Right,
don't, they
right.
don't. You're going out because, it's entertainment, you want the food, you don't wanna cook. There's, several reasons to be social, several reasons. They don't have to push, just because 'cause they're gonna charge you $30 enough
Yeah.
for 2 people and possibly still take some home because a lot of people are still in that mindset of eating to the plate's empty or, "Oh, just one
Yeah.
more bite because it's there."
It's really interesting. I've been to America a couple of times, and me and my wife, we were actually in New York. This is going back a few years, and we wanted to try McDonald's to see what the difference was between the
Mhm,
UK McDonald's and the US McDonald's. And we asked for, I can't remember if we asked for a regular or a small, but the Coke that came with it was bigger than our large. It was
mhm,
so big, and yeah, and it was, to us at the time. It was funny. It was funny. It was like, look what we get for it's a small, but look at the size of it. But actually, that must cause so much damage, to those that
mhm,
are regularly doing that. That could be. Let's be honest. For some people, they might make that trip 2 or 3 times a week.
mhm.
That becomes dangerous.
Absolutely. Uh, so getting back to the Zepbound
Mm.
or the Mounjaro in your case, uh, did you use a particular injection site? Did you alternate? Did you have one that was your favorite?
Yeah, so I've only ever put it into my stomach.
Hmm.
Initially to start with, I was alternating sites, um, more because I read that that's a good idea,
Hmm.
and no other reason did I do that. After a while, and even now, I do it in the same side every time. It just seems to work for me. I haven't tried it anywhere else. I think if it
Hmm.
got to the point where it wasn't working, and I did read this somewhere else. I forget where, but I did read somebody that, maybe this is anecdotal, but they were saying it makes no difference, where you put
Yeah,
it.
I think
I
it's a
don't I don't know.
psychological difference.
I think so. I've just always put it in the same spot. It seems to work for me, and I'm very much a creature of habits. And if it works, why change it? You know.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, uh, you had a YouTube channel and you kind of
Mm.
incorporated the, Mounjaro into it. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I was quite concerned about that initially, because it was. I mean, my channel's called Freddy Runs. It tells you on the
Mhm,
tin what it's about. I'm Freddy and I run. Freddy runs. And I reached out to a couple of my friends, two of which have a channel together, and another friend who has done work with me on my channel. And I said to them, look, I've made this decision, and this is what I'm going to be doing. But
well, I think we lost your sound. We lost your sound. Looks like you're muted.
are we back?
Okay, we're back.
Oh, sorry, I have no idea what
That's
happened
okay.
there. Yeah, so I spoke to these friends, and said to them, look, this is my plan. This is what I'm going to be doing. I'm really unsure about how to approach this. And they were really good to me, and they responded really quickly and didn't beat around the bush. And they said to me, look, Freddie, if we look back at your your journey, if you like, on YouTube, it's always been about honestly sharing your story. You were on it. My very first video says, I want to lose weight and get healthy. Um, and they said, and people have been watching you for 2 years, and if you don't tell them the truth, then that's a lie. And they're right. And I don't know. Maybe it's not a lie, but I'm certainly hiding something from
Mhm,
the viewer. And I think that was really important to me, and respectful to the viewer, that I was nothing but honest. Um, and I was really worried about it, because the fitness world can also be a fickle world. Because I mentioned about the, eat less, move more.
mhm,
Well, 9 times out of 10, they're fit people that say that. They're people that look after themselves because they feel superior, and they feel like, well, I can do this without medication, so you should be able to. So I was worried about the backlash that I might get from that. Um, I, I was really, really pleasantly surprised by the response that I got, though. because I said it from day one. I said it actually before I took my first injection. I let people know that I was going to do it. And I was clear to them. I said, don't come at me with advice. Unless you're a doctor, I do not want to hear it. I will not respond to your advice. You're not a medical professional. A bit like what you said at the very beginning. I said that to my viewers. I said, do not give me that advice. I'm talking to a professional. But the response I got was overwhelmingly positive. I was
Great.
genuinely shocked by it. And I think partly that's because my audience are the same as me. That's why they were watching me, because they can relate to me. The I don't want to say they're all overweight, because of course they're not, but
Mhm.
they can relate to the story that I was telling about myself. So I had nothing but positivity. Um, but then as time went on, and I'll be really honest, and this is will tell you more about me than it will about them. I started telling I was giving weekly updates. This is what's happened. These are the side effects I've
Mhm.
had. This is what I've been experiencing. And I would put them in between my running videos as well. And I'll be honest and say that the Manjaro videos actually were doing better than my running videos. It seemed to really spark an interest. But I got fed up of making them. Um, I almost want to say that I got bored in a way of making them, because, and I think it's because the way that I started to do it, I started to do it by saying, I'm going to give you a weekly update. Of course, after 20 weeks, nothing really is changing. The side effects are under control. I'm taking my medication. I'm losing weight. I'm doing this. I didn't know what to talk about. So I did stop making them. And I've only really recently made another couple. Um, but that's because I was looking at it all wrong. And I actually now get people saying to me, they'll drop me messages saying, "Hey, you're the Manjaro guy. What's happened?" Um, and I lost my way with my channel a little bit, I feel.
Mhm.
I'm addressing. I actually messaged a friend of mine today and said this to him, that my USP for my channel isn't that I run. It's that I run and I'm losing weight and I'm trying to get a new healthy lifestyle, and I'm using Manjaro. That's what makes my USP for my
Mhm.
channel. So I have to lean into that more. And I think the answer there is that I don't just say, well, this is what's happened this week. Think I need to look at what's happened over the last year and from now onwards, and just go a little bit deeper into those things. Again,
Mhm.
without giving advice, it's never going to be about giving advice. It's just to give more explanation into the impact that a lot of this story has had
Mhm.
on me. Because one of the things that I haven't really talked about on my channel, although we've touched on in this tonight, on this podcast, is the mental health benefits that I've seen.
Mhm.
And I think it's really important that I start sharing that side of the story as well. This
Mhm.
isn't just about a number on a scale. It's so
Yeah.
much more than that, so much more than that. And actually, that number on a scale is probably the least important thing now, you
Mhm.
know, because it's just a number. It means nothing really. It's just a number. I know that's really easy to say, because when you're maybe 250, 300 pounds or more, that number's the only thing you can think about.
Mhm.
And maybe I've just got myself to the point now where it's not all I think about. And I understand now, and I've educated myself maybe, that it's all these other things are more important. How good I'm feeling, how happy I am, all of that sort of stuff. How more mobile I am as a person. So I really need to, and I'm going to. I've started making a strategy and a plan already. I can get a bit like that. It's really get into the depths of it, and I'm going to do that, and really open up the channel so it's not just that running. We're going to continue and jump back into that story of the weight loss, and
Yeah.
also life after Manjaro. And I think it's
Absolutely.
important. I think it's important that I share that, so then I can say if it's working or not, because
Mhm.
it might not, and I might end up leaving Manjaro for a period of time, then coming back. And it's important that I tell that side of the
And
story
that's
as well.
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, I said before, if need be, I will be a lifelong user and I will be happy to brag about that if I need to. Do I want that to be the case? I do not. But if it needs to
Mhm.
be, so be it.
But you're very right about the number on the scale. As a matter of fact, they make I think it's called shape a scale. That's color. It's not number.
Right.
It just tells you if you're still in your zone or if you're losing or gaining, and that's it.
Brilliant.
No particular number, just a color.
Love that. Love that idea. Yeah.
Because
It's just
some
not.
people that number just freaks them out. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the problem is there is what happens when you get to that goal? If you've got a number, if you want to get to 170 pounds, okay, cool. What happens when you get there? Because the next day you might be 170.5 because you had an extra glass of water when you went to bed. You
hmm
know, the day after that you might be 169, but then you might go to 172. Where does it stop? You know, and I think I think my wife recognised that before me, and she would sort of say to me, "Hold on a minute, you're obsessing over that number,"
hmm
and she was right.
As a person in maintenance that does use a numbered scale, I have a 7 pound window, which is fine. And as I get to the very top of it, I'm kind of like, okay, well, I need to really start watching it for a
Yeah,
little bit. And it quickly goes back down and,
yeah,
life is normal. And that's how I handle it. I'm not saying that's the
yeah.
right way to handle it, but that's how I handle it.
But that's the joy of it, though. Again, what we said before is we're all on our individual journeys. We're all going to do it our different way, and all of
hmm
us are right. All of us are right. You know,
hmm
it works for you, then it
Absolutely.
works.
Anything you want to bring up before we kind of wrap this up?
Yeah, I just want to reiterate that I think it's important to those of us that are sharing our journey. First of all, I think it's important that we're honest about it. I think that that's vital. Is be honest, and that is the bad things as well. If you're having a
Mhm,
bad time and some that you, again, not to give it as advice, but it's something you want to say. Look, this happened to me. It's important that you do that. Um, because it's again going back to the paracetamol story. It all comes with risk. So if
mhm.
I think it's just yeah vital that we share the ups and the downs. Um,
Absolutely. I know
and
I've shared that I've had a really hard time this holiday season. I did get up to that upper range, not planning on it, where the last 2 years that I've been on the medication, it hasn't been a problem. Part of it
yeah,
might be because 'cause I'm on maintenance and have added a little bit more and, I'm not quite
yeah,
as strict with myself, but
yeah,
I was surprised at how many people came back and commented, like, "Hey, I'm in the same boat, the same type of thing, I'm starting again, to get
yeah.
back on track."
A friend of mine has just he came off I think 3 months ago. He's just gone back on. He put I think £10 back on, but felt like that was continuous and continuing. So
Mhm,
he decided to go back on it again to address it. Um, but the other thing I would say is I'm sharing my story. Laura, you share your story, and we're
mhm,
happy to do that. But just remember, it's nobody else's business. You tell who you want, you do it how you want. It's nobody else's
mhm,
business. And
absolutely.
one other thing that I really want to address because I had this message. I want to say it was maybe 6 or 8 months ago. I was sent a message from a lady who was asking my advice on Manjaro use, but for a totally different angle than I ever expected to have to answer. And the truth was, I couldn't answer it. Um, well, I could answer it, but it was very difficult to answer it, and that's because her partner wouldn't let her use it. But her partner said, "No, you're not using it," and it wasn't a financial reason. It wasn't that she was going to make them bankrupt or break them or anything like that.
Mhm,
Financially, they were fine. He just didn't like it. So I want to say to anyone on the off chance of listening to this video that is telling somebody else not to use it because you don't like it, shut your mouth, mind your own business,
mhm,
and just concentrate on you. You don't own that other person's body. You don't own their mind, and it is not your decision to make.
absolutely.
Um, and she did stand up for herself, and she did take the
Good.
Manjaro, and it did work for her.
Awesome. So I tend to wrap these up by asking people, what would your best advice be to somebody about to start their Mounjaro journey?
Yeah, I would for me, it's always going to be two things that are vital, and it's two things that they already know. We all already know, but we all know them because they're important, which actually tells us that they're probably more important than you realize. And we spoke about it already. It's eat your protein and drink water.
Hmm.
Those two for me, I got them wrong. Not massively wrong, but I got them wrong. And I think you really need
Everybody
to.
does.
Absolutely, absolutely. But those are the two things. It's if you think you're having enough, maybe have a little bit more,
Hmm.
and see how you get on then.
And definitely open up your minds to possibilities like that, because like I said, everybody's different and everybody's journey is different. What
Yep,
they eat is different. Just keep an open mind, listen to what other people, you know, do. Don't take that as advice. Just,
yep.
possibly you could use a little bit of this person's, a little bit of this, and see if it works for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And my whole life has changed around. I've talked about it so many times with people. In July this year, I'm going to attempt to run 100 miles in 24 hours.
Wow.
What? What? It's kind of what? I couldn't do that 2 years ago, a year ago. I couldn't do. I can't. Well, I can't do it yet. We'll find out if I can do it. But there's no chance of me being able to do it unless I would have got myself in a healthier place. So
Absolutely.
it changes your life.
Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. It's been a pleasure. And hopefully, 6 months from now, we could do a follow up and see how you're doing, find out if you hit that 100-mile goal.
Please.
Uh, and again, check out Freddy's channel. I'm sure he'll be doing a video if he hits it. And like and subscribe to this channel, his channel. And again, I want to thank you.
No, and thank you. And honestly, thank you for trying to get this message out to everything. I think it's absolutely vital work that you're doing. So I really
Thank you.
appreciate you. So thank you.
Absolutely. That's a wrap.